There was a scrimmage last weekend based on the stats, the video, the information that came out. What are your thoughts there?
The scrimmage was the Saturday before Pro Day. There was it seemed like there's some good things, and Miami's a private school, and I love it because I only went to private schools my entire life. Shout out to my mom for paying all that tuition my entire life. Well, yeah, whatever. But you do get a little bit of state-run media from the University of Miami Athletic Department and everything, which is to say you see a lot of good, but on the flip side of the good, there's the bad, which wasn't necessarily put out there. So, for example, both quarterbacks did very well in the scrimmage. Xavier Restrepo, to Hurricane Logan's question, went off like 9 catches, 144, and 2 touchdowns, or 7 catches, 144, and 2 tutties, and everything, which is great. But who was in coverage? Because if he's doing that, and you see some still pictures of some guys who probably should not be on first-team defense, and he's eating them up for yards and everything, or eating up that space, I should say. That's great, but I want to see that against the ones. Also, as well, if you have interceptions by defensive backs, but none listed for any quarterbacks, that doesn't curl over. Like, if passes were intercepted, passes were thrown to be intercepted. But it was just Tyler Van Dyke had a touchdown, Jay Garcia had a touchdown. And forward we go. And I'm just like, that's the selective editing that you can do in that kind of scenario. Donald Chaney Jr. is running back number 1. You saw the video, the highlight of his long touchdown run. He needs to start. Or if you're gonna give seniority to this, or starter, you're going to start the player by seniority by going with Cam Harris. Fine, do that. The middle and the closer then needs to be Don Chaney Jr. The majority of those reps needs to be him. And Eric Hickson, the running backs coach, was talking about maybe rotating, or sorry, that was Rhett Lashley, excuse me, who was talking about maybe rotating running backs a little bit less to get somebody who can get into a groove more with less rotation of or splitting up the carries. Running back with number 2 on his jersey and number 1 on the depth chart needs to be Donald Chaney Jr. Sorry, he's just a different running back than these other guys. And Jalen Knighton, I think, is the lightning to Chaney's thunder. So he is the real one, is the change of pace back. And then Cam Harris, look, I'm not going to say he shouldn't play. He should play here. He has a role here and everything. He can play in this offense. But if I'm dividing up the reps, I'm sorry. Chaney's going to get a lot. Harris would probably be my number 2. Your third down back and special kind of that third one in would be Jalen Knighton. You got Cody Brown, who's a horse, coming in later. You got Thad Franklin coming in, we got 2 massive running backs coming in. Both these guys are 6'1" or 6 foot, 230, 35 pounds. Both of those guys, Brown and Franklin. Look, I love that physicality and everything. They're not the fastest guys in the world, but you're going to have that. But yeah, I think that Donald Chaney Jr. just keeps continuing to separate himself in terms of talent, potential, which is still limitless, and production on the field at the number 1 running back slot. Mike Harley keeps doing numbers at wide receiver. It was great. Tyler Van Dyke and Jay Garcia, like I said, they're really starting to step up and take advantage of the opportunity that they have in front of them, with Derek King being out for the spring, rehabbing from his knee injury and everything like that. Corey Flagg at linebacker. Avery Huff was flashing. You have guys in the secondary. Bubba Bolden's going to be Bubba Bolden. Tyreek Stevenson's going to be Tyreek Stevenson, which are good things for Miami. Guys like that. But the middle and bottom of the roster, I think, is developing. Really want to see, again, how the offensive line continues to move forward. But, there's a lot to like. But, again, take everything with a grain of salt just because you still have highly controlled situations. So even if guys are being very successful like a Restrepo, that's in a very controlled situation where we're really finding out. I think that, speaking of baseball, you remember Mike Hessman? Mike Hessman played for the Toledo Mud Hens, the Detroit Tigers AAA team. Mm-hmm. Mike Hessman is the minor league's, I believe, career home run leader. He's what we call a 4A player. He's the best AAA first baseman. He will hit 30 home runs a year in AAA. but he's not quite good enough to have had a career in the majors. But he was clearly better than most AAA players, but just not good enough. So he was that 4A kind of a guy. We're definitely seeing that Xavier Restrepo is a 4A kind of prospect. He's too good for the minors. I'm not sure about being good enough for the majors, but being in a controlled situation, he's going to dominate against other minor leaguers. So against your second team guys, against your scout team guys, your developing guys, Restrepo is clearly a cut above. Is that enough to really make noise with the first team, up with the big show, with the lights are bright, and everybody's a half step faster, a little bit bigger, stronger, and more intelligent, things like that? That's what I want to see from all these rotation guys who have been making some plays. Can they step up from being a 4A player like Mike Hessman to being a star player like a Mike Trout?
There was a player that on the last day of the Major League Baseball season, way before my time, this was in the early 60s, had like a 4-for-6 day. I believe it was Tom Paciorek, who I believe it was his brother. Anyway, had like a 4-for-6 day and never sniffed the major leagues again. And he retired with a 4-for-6, like a triple, double, some crazy slugging percentage, but he just had the one day, and that was his one day in the big leagues. Not bad.
Right.
Also, when you bring up Donald Chaney, it makes me think to the time the team was coming out of its own end against Pitt, and he had a couple carries in a row. I don't think it was anything special necessarily, but to me, watching the plays live and then watching the replays, I thought, this guy's the best back on the team. Like, he's shredding guys. Guys can't get a hold of his thighs and bring him down. He's just tearing. Like, he didn't have a big hole and he didn't break away from anyone necessarily, but it took guys like 6 yards to get him down. He was just
right. That's the part of the scenario. You know what I mean? Like, that's how all those things go together. It doesn't always have to be a 99-yard up the middle, Bo Jackson, I'm just running away over and through everybody. But yeah, those, it's, you're up by 7. It's late in it's middle of the fourth quarter. You're on your own 2-yard line. I take a play that would have been for 2 yards because I get hit as I step through that hole. That 2-yard gain, I carry guys, that turns into 7. So now it's 2nd and 3. Now I have another inside run. That should be loss of a yard, ends up a gain of 4. Move the sticks. First down. The clock keeps ticking. We keep moving. Those little things change drives. You know what I mean? Because that 2-yard gain is a 2-yard gain. Now you're 2nd and 8. If that -1 is a -1, now you're 3rd and 9. Those things are very, as opposed to, in the scenario I just created, 1st and 10 on the 13-yard line after 2 carries. Those little things make a big difference, and I think that's what Donald Chaney brings to the table. And even if it's only a 7-yard run, then it usually looks different, man. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's not just me. I mean, Mark said it. Hey, looks like the best running back on the team. You can go up and down the timeline. There's a lot of guys who see that. And look, again, I love Cam Harris as a person. Interviewed him a few times when he was in high school. You know what I'm talking about? Like, over at Carroll City and everything. I don't dislike the guy. I do think he has a role. It's just as a number 2 running back because Donald Chaney Jr. is different.
Yeah, Cam Harris is a good back. He's
Absolutely.
a quality back.
Yeah. But there's a difference between being a quality back and like a star. And I think, that's that. If you've been watching some of these versus battles, where the two musical groups go up against each other, people are talking about, okay, who wins? There was a line that Bomani Jones said that I love. He's like, okay, cool. I get that you can like who you like, but for me, and I forget which battle it was, he was like, it's hits versus jams. Because you know a hit and you know those things that are on the but you know something, you hear that joint and it jams. And I think that that's the difference between Chaney and Harris. Harris got hits, and there's nothing wrong with hits, and hits are going to be in the rotation. But Donald Chaney jams, bro, and that's different.